Welcome to our channel. We're so glad you're here to join us on this incredible journey of stories. Whether you're a long-time viewer or a first-timer, we'd love to hear where you're watching from. Drop a comment below and share with us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on tomorrow's special story. We've got so many amazing adventures coming your way, and we can't wait for you to be part of it. Get ready for a new chapter. Your thoughts and comments are always welcome here. This royal guard's moment of compassion will leave you speechless. Max's excitement bubbled up inside him as he stood next to his mother, Sarah, on the bustling streets of London. Today was going to be special. He could feel it in the air. His small hand gripped Sarah's tightly as they made their way through the crowd toward Buckingham Palace. People from all around the world were gathered, cameras ready, eager to capture one of London's most iconic traditions, the changing of the guard. Tourists, dressed in colorful clothes and chatting excitedly, surrounded Max and his mother, making the scene feel alive with energy. Max had always been curious about the guards in their towering black bearskin hats and red uniforms, standing so still and proud in front of the palace gates. He had seen them in books and on television, but nothing could compare to being here in person. His red sweater, chosen carefully by Sarah to match the guards' uniforms, felt like the perfect choice. It was a small thing, but it made him feel like he belonged in this grand moment. Still, despite the excitement, Max couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered at the edges of his mind. He was one of the few black faces among the sea of tourists, and as he stood there waiting, he couldn't help but notice the glances from those around him. No one said a word, but Max could feel the subtle weight of those looks, the sense that he was different from the others. He lowered his gaze, focusing on the polished cobblestones beneath his feet, hoping the ground would swallow him up and take away the discomfort gnawing at his chest. Sarah, sensing her son's unease, knelt beside him, brushing her hand gently through his neatly combed hair. "You okay, baby?" she asked, her voice soft and comforting. Max nodded, but his fingers tightened around her hand. "They're so tall," he whispered, his eyes darting nervously to the imposing figures of the guards standing like statues before them. The soldiers, rifles in hand and faces completely expressionless, seemed like giants in a world he could never be a part of. "And they look so serious," Max continued, his voice small and unsure. "Do you think they'll even notice me?" Sarah smiled warmly, her expression filled with love and quiet determination. She gently squeezed his hand, hoping to soothe his worries. "Oh, they notice you, Max. Trust me. You're going to remember this day for the rest of your life," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of her belief in her son. But Sarah's words weren't just to reassure him. They were also a reminder. This trip to Buckingham Palace wasn't just about the changing of the guard. It was about showing Max that the world was filled with history, beauty, and possibility. It was her way of reminding him that he belonged here, even if he didn't always feel like he did. She wanted him to see beyond the discomfort and the awkwardness, to embrace the wonder of the world around him. Max, however, still felt the lingering doubt in his heart, the unspoken question that hung heavy in the air. "Do I really belong here?" Then the crowd suddenly hushed. A faint sound of drumming echoed down the street, signaling the arrival of the guards. Max's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes widened as he saw them. Soldiers in their red tunics and tall black bearskin hats marching toward the gates of Buckingham Palace, moving in perfect unison, the rhythmic sound of their boots striking. The ground was hypnotic, like a drumbeat that resonated deep within him. Max could hardly contain his awe. "Wow," he whispered, barely loud enough for Sarah to hear. He was mesmerized, watching as the guards moved with such discipline, precision, and grace. But as much as he admired them, he couldn't shake the sadness that lingered inside. The soldiers seemed so distant, so untouchable, like they were part of a world that he could never truly belong to. The more he watched, the more he felt the weight of being different, of being an outsider. For a moment, Max wanted to wave, to call out to the guards, to somehow make them see him, not just as another face in the crowd, but as Max, a boy with dreams, hopes, and feelings, just like anyone else. But he didn't. He stayed quiet, shrinking a little closer to his mother's side, his heart heavy with uncertainty. And yet, in the midst of the crowd and the ceremony, something happened that Max could never have expected. One of the guards, stationed closest to the gates, shifted his gaze. It was subtle, barely perceptible, but Max caught it. Their eyes locked for a brief moment, and Max froze, wondering if he had imagined it. The connection, brief as it was, made Max feel something he hadn't before seen. In that fleeting instant, it was as if the guard had acknowledged him, breaking through the silence of the crowd. For a brief moment, Max felt like he truly belonged, like he was part of something much bigger than himself. Max stood frozen, his eyes locked with the guards, as if the world had slowed down around him. The brief, unexpected connection was still fresh in his mind. Had the guard really seen him? The moment had been so fleeting, yet it felt like the most significant thing that had ever happened to him. But as the guards continued their march, moving in perfect formation, Max's excitement was still tempered with uncertainty. His heart raced and his mind buzzed with questions. Did he really belong here? The weight of his doubt hung in the air, making his chest feel tight like he couldn't fully breathe. The crowd around him seemed oblivious to the silent exchange that had just unfolded. They were caught up in the ceremony, cheering, snapping photos, and applauding the precision of the guards' every move. But for Max, it was different. His gaze shifted from the guards to the people around him. The tourists' excitement only seemed to highlight how different he felt. He didn't belong here, at least not in the way they all did. The unease inside him grew again, gnawing at his confidence. He wanted to shout out, to wave his arms, to be seen and heard like everyone else, but the fear of rejection, of not fitting in, kept him silent. He glanced up at his mother, Sarah, who had been quietly watching him the whole time. She could see the internal battle raging within her son. Sarah knew Max well. She could tell that his mind was spinning with doubts. She had seen this before, the way he would pull away, the way he would shrink back when the world felt too big, too overwhelming. But she refused to let him retreat into himself, not today. This trip, this moment, was too important for him to miss. Taking a deep breath, Sarah knelt down beside him, her voice gentle yet firm. "Max," she said softly, brushing a strand of his hair from his forehead, "I know you're feeling a little unsure right now, but I want you to listen to me. This moment, right here, is a part of history, and it's your history. You belong here just as much as anyone else. Do you understand me?" Max looked up at her, his big brown eyes wide with uncertainty. But there was something in Sarah's voice, something unwavering and strong that made him feel just a little bit lighter. She wasn't just comforting him, she was reminding him of who he was. Max might have felt different in the crowd, but that didn't make him any less important. "I know it feels like you're the only one who looks different," Sarah continued, "but trust me, you're not alone. The world is full of people, just like you, people with dreams, with hopes, with stories to tell. And you are going to tell your story too." Max's fingers tightened around her hand as he listened, a sense of calm slowly spreading over him. Sarah had always been his rock, the one who made him feel safe in the chaos of the world. Her words were like a lifeline, pulling him out of the sea of doubt and into the light of possibility. "But Mama," Max whispered, his voice barely audible, "what if they don't see me?" His eyes darted nervously toward the guards again. "What if I'm just invisible?" Sarah smiled warmly, her eyes filled with a quiet pride. "Oh, Max," she said softly, "you're not invisible. Not to me, not to the world. You are seen, and one day you're going to look back on this moment and realize how much it mattered. This is the beginning of something amazing for you. You're going to make your mark on the world, I just know it." Max stared at her, his heart swelling with a mixture of emotions. For the first time that day, he didn't feel so small. The world didn't seem so overwhelming. He still had doubts, still felt unsure, But Sarah's belief in him was like a spark that lit a fire inside of him. As the changing of the guard continued, Max's eyes shifted back to the soldiers. This time, he wasn't just watching them from the sidelines. He was involved, in his own way, in his own journey. His mother had given him the courage to step forward, even if it was just in his mind, and face the doubt that had been holding him back. Max smiled, just a little, feeling a sense of connection not only to the world around him, but also to something deeper inside himself. He may not have the answers yet, but he was ready to find them. As the drums echoed through the street, the air around Max seemed to vibrate with anticipation. The crowd around him grew quiet, and he could feel the weight of their attention on the moment. His gaze shifted to the guards, soldiers in their iconic red tunics and towering black bearskin hats, marching in perfect formation, their steps synchronized with the beat of the drums. Every step, every movement was precise, almost mechanical, and yet there was a grace in it, a rhythm that sent a shiver down Max's spine. Max felt his heart racing as the soldiers approached, their boots striking the pavement in perfect harmony. It was as if time had slowed, the world narrowing down to just the guards and him. His earlier feelings of unease began to fade slightly, replaced by something else, something he couldn't quite place. Awe, maybe, or wonder. All he knew was that the soldiers looked so imposing, so flawless in their execution, that for a moment he forgot about feeling out of place. For that brief moment, he could almost believe that he was part of this grand spectacle. He wanted to reach out, to wave, to call out to them, but the thought of doing so felt impossible. Max wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the way they carried themselves, so dignified and serious. Or maybe it was the fear of standing out even more, of drawing attention to himself in a way he wasn't ready for. The crowd cheered and took photos, but Max stayed silent, his eyes fixed on the guards. As they came closer, his stomach tightened with a mix of awe and apprehension. They seemed so far removed from him, as if they were part of a different world entirely, a world that he could never fully enter. Sarah, sensing the shift in her son, smiled softly to herself. She could see that Max was struggling with the same doubts he always had, but there was something different today. Something about the moment was shifting within him. She hadn't been sure how to help him find his place in the world, but she had always known that moments like this, moments that felt bigger than you, had the power to change how you saw yourself. She leaned down and whispered in his ear, "Max, remember what I told you. You're just as important as any of them. Don't let this moment pass you by without seeing it for what it is." Max nodded, his fingers still gripping hers, but his gaze never wavered from the guards, the hypnotic rhythm of their steps drawing him deeper into the scene unfolding before him. He wanted to believe her, to trust that he did belong here, but there was still a part of him that wasn't sure. And then, as the soldiers neared their posts, something extraordinary happened. The guard closest to Max, the one who had made brief eye contact with him earlier, shifted his gaze again. This time it wasn't a fleeting moment. The guard's eyes locked with Max's just for a second, but it was enough for Max to feel a rush of heat flood his chest. His heart skipped a beat and he froze. Did he just look at me again? Max thought, his mind racing. For a moment the world seemed to pause around him. He wanted to shout, to ask his mother if she had seen it, but the guard's gaze held him still, as if to say, "I see you." Max's breath caught in his throat as the soldier's face remained stoic, but his eyes, there was something in his eyes that broke through the rigid discipline. Max had seen it before, in books and films, but it had never felt so real until now. The connection was brief, almost imperceptible, but it felt like it meant something more than just a passing glance. Just as Max was about to look away, something happened that Max could not have anticipated. The guard, as if he had made a conscious decision, took a small step out of formation. The crowd around them gasped in surprise. Cameras clicked furiously, people murmured in confusion, but Max's eyes were fixed on the soldier, who continued to approach him, undeterred by the shifting attention of the crowd. The guard's movements were slow and deliberate, as if he knew exactly what he was doing. His eyes never left Max's. With each step, the distance between them closed. The air around Max thickened, his heart pounding faster with every passing second. What is happening? Max thought, his stomach turning in both disbelief and wonder. Chatu. Guard stopped just a few paces away, towering over Max. The crowd had fallen silent, their attention now fully on the unfolding scene. Max could feel the eyes of every person around him, but it didn't matter. The world had narrowed down to this one moment, this one soldier, and Max, standing there with his heart racing in his chest. The soldier bent down, bringing his face closer to Max's, and for a brief moment they were eye to eye. And then, in a gesture that took Max completely by surprise, the guard reached into his pocket and pulled out a small brass button. He extended it toward Max with a look in his eyes that Max would never forget. "For you," the soldier said softly, his deep voice resonating with warmth. Max stared at the button, his heart swelling with emotion. His hand trembled as he reached out, taking the button from the soldier's gloved hand. The moment seemed to freeze in time, the crowd around them erupting in applause as cameras flashed. But to Max, the applause didn't matter. What mattered was that, for the first time, he felt seen, truly seen. Max's hand shook slightly as he held the brass button in his palm, the small object now feeling heavier than anything he had ever held before. His breath was shallow, his heart still racing as the crowd around him erupted into applause. The cameras flashed, the cheers grew louder, but Max barely heard them. All he could hear was the pounding of his own heartbeat and the deep, steady voice of the guard echoing in his mind. "For you." The moment felt like it had suspended time. The whole world around him faded away, leaving only the soldier and the button. Max had seen these guards on television, in pictures, and in books. He had admired them from afar, thinking they were untouchable, far above his world. But now, standing just inches away from one of them, he realized something that would change him forever. They weren't untouchable. They weren't some distant figure in a uniform. They were human, just like him. And this guard, this soldier who had broken all the rules, had shown him kindness when Max had least expected it. The applause from the crowd around him seemed to fade into the background, as if he were in a bubble, separated from the world by this one extraordinary moment. His fingers wrapped around the brass button, holding it like a precious treasure, his small hands shaking not from fear, but from the overwhelming realization that, for once, he was not invisible. He had been seen, truly seen, by someone who had no reason to acknowledge him. Sarah, standing nearby, was equally stunned. She had watched the whole exchange, her heart swelling with pride and amazement. She had seen Max struggle with his doubts, with his sense of being different, and yet here he was, holding a token of kindness from one of the most disciplined figures in the world. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she watched her son, feeling a mix of emotions she couldn't quite put into words. She had always known that Max had something special inside him, but now, in this single moment, she saw the world open up for him in a way she hadn't imagined. "Mama," Max whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. He held the button up, as if offering it to her as proof. "He gave it to me because he saw me." Sarah knelt beside him, her hands resting gently on his shoulders. She met his eyes, her voice soft yet filled with pride. "I told you, Max. You are seen. You always have been. Don't ever forget this moment. You matter. You've always mattered." Max nodded, but his mind was still spinning. He had never imagined this would happen, never thought that one small gesture could change everything. The soldier, breaking protocol and stepping out of formation, had given him something far more valuable than just a button. He had given him a sense of belonging, a feeling that he wasn't just an observer in the world, but an active participant in it. As the soldier rose back to his full height, Max's gaze followed him. The guard's face returned to its usual stoic expression, the mask of discipline falling back into place. But Max noticed something. Just a flicker, a brief moment in his eyes, a glimmer of something beyond the rigid professionalism. compassion perhaps, or a smile hidden behind the guard's mask but real nonetheless. It was as if, in that brief second, the soldier was telling Max that this moment was not just about duty, but about humanity. The crowd around them began to buzz again, the energy shifting as they returned to their admiration of the ceremony. But Max stood still, his hand still wrapped around the button, his heart full in a way it never had been before. The world around him had returned to its usual pace, but for Max, everything felt different now. The changing of the guard continued, the soldiers once again marching in perfect formation, their steps synchronized with military precision. But Max no longer felt like just a part of the crowd. He was part of something bigger now, something that transcended all the differences he had felt before. He belonged. Max turned to Sarah, his eyes wide with wonder. Do you think? He knew I felt different? He asked, his voice quiet, almost uncertain. Sarah smiled, her hand gently brushing his cheek. Maybe he saw something special in you, Max. Maybe he wanted to remind you that you're important no matter what. That's what today was about. Showing you that you belong, you're seen, and you matter. Max looked down at the button. Again, his fingers brushing over the polished brass. It was small, unassuming, but to him it was the most important thing he had ever held. And for the first time in a long time, Max didn't feel invisible. He felt like he mattered. He felt like he could be part of this world, his world, just as much as anyone else. Max stood frozen, clutching the brass button in his hand, his eyes still fixed on the spot where the soldier had stood moments before. The crowd around him had erupted in applause, but it all felt distant, muffled, like the sound was coming from far away. His mind was still spinning, trying to process what had just happened. The guard, the one who had always seemed so untouchable, had broken the rules for him. He had seen Max, truly seen him, and had given him a piece of his world, a simple but profound gesture that would stay with Max forever. For a long moment, Max didn't speak. His fingers trembled as he held the button, feeling its cool, polished surface under his fingertips. The noise of the crowd faded into the background as his thoughts swirled. Did that really just happen? He wondered. Am I really holding this button? Did he really give it to me? Sarah, who had been standing by with a soft smile on her face, knelt down beside him once more. She had watched the entire exchange, her heart swelling with pride and awe. Max had always struggled with his sense of belonging, always doubted whether he truly fit in with the world around him. But now, standing there, holding the button, Sarah could see the change in, her son. She could see that the doubts, the fears, the insecurities were starting to melt away, replaced by something much stronger. She could see that he was beginning to understand that he mattered, that he was seen and heard. Max finally looked up at her, his face still a mix of disbelief and wonder. His voice trembled as he spoke. Mama, he gave it to me, because he saw me. Sarah smiled warmly, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. I told you, Max, she said softly, her voice full of pride. You've always been seen. This is just a reminder that the world is full of people who recognize your worth, even if it doesn't always feel like it. Max nodded, his small hand still gripping the button. The weight of it was heavy in a way he hadn't expected, more than just the physical weight of the metal. It felt like it carried the weight of everything he had ever hoped for, everything he had ever doubted. It wasn't just a button, it was proof. Proof that someone, even in the most formal and rigid of environments, could break through the boundaries that divided people. It was proof that he wasn't invisible. As Max looked down at the button again, he realized something important. The guard hadn't just given him a piece of his uniform. He had given Max a gift far greater than that, a sense of belonging, a sense of connection that Max had never felt before. For the first time, he truly felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. The world, which had always seemed so distant and unwelcoming, now felt like a place where he could find his place, where he could be seen, where he could be heard. He looked up at Sarah again, his eyes wide with wonder. "Mama, do you think he did that because he knew I felt different?" Sarah smiled, her eyes misty with emotion. "Maybe he saw something special in you, Max. Maybe he wanted to remind you that you're important no matter what." She paused, her voice growing softer, more reflective. "Maybe he wanted you to remember this day, to remember that kindness and connection can break through even the strictest of barriers." Max clutched the button tighter, his heart swelling with emotion. The sound of the crowd faded into the background, and all he could hear was the steady beating of his heart, each thump a reminder that he was here, that he mattered, that he belonged. The changing of the guard continued around him, the soldiers marching in perfect formation, their faces stoic and unmoving. But Max's world had shifted. In that one moment, everything had changed. The guard's gesture had broken through the distance, the walls, the barriers that had kept him feeling isolated and unsure. Max no longer felt like an outsider. He no longer felt like the world was something he could never be a part of. With the brass button in his hand, Max understood something crucial. He was seen, and that was all he needed to know. The ceremony continued, the guards marching off as the crowd cheered and took photos. But Max stood still, his fingers wrapped tightly around the button, his gaze fixed ahead, no longer lost in the crowd, but standing tall in his own space, ready to face the world with new eyes. For the first time, Max knew that he was part of something much bigger than himself, and that knowledge, that certainty, would stay with him forever. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this unforgettable moment in the story. Max's journey toward self-discovery and finding a sense of belonging is one that resonates with all of us. Whether you've ever felt different, uncertain, or out of place, this story reminds us that we all have the power to make meaningful connections and be seen for who we truly are. So tell us, what does this story mean to you? Have you ever experienced a moment where you felt truly seen or understood by someone? How did it change your perspective or the way you view the world? We want to hear your personal stories and reflections. Share them in the comments below. Your voice matters, and you never know how your experience might inspire someone else. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content like this. We have plenty of incredible stories coming your way, and we don't want you to miss out. Let us know what kind of stories you'd love to see next, and stay tuned for more inspiring moments. Your feedback is always valued, and we can't wait to hear from you.